I know that growing up, playing video games was something that it was reserved for very specific folks, ones that maybe weren't the most popular. I know I certainly didn't feel that popular playing video games, but I was at church the other day and met a couple dudes who were talking about video games, and we just went back and forth, and it was such an awesome conversation because we were just completely having a great time talking about different things, different manga, anime, and stuff like that. And I realized something. I realized that this very thing, video games, the thing that we all talk about, is really, or has really become quite an important hobby for a lot of people, especially us dads. And something that was kind of cool to talk about was both of them being PC gamers, but I was telling them that I'm a portable papa. I didn't use that terminology, but that I play on portables, specifically the Nintendo Switch, Steam Deck, as well as an emulation device. And I think that that combination of the three is the, for lack of a better terminology, the gaming trinity, having one of each. Now, you can easily just have one device to rule them all. I think the Steam Deck is that device. But that being said, I am a sucker for first party. So having something like a Nintendo Switch, an emulation device to play smaller games in this form factor, as well as the Steam Deck really does well. I know you're going, well, what about the Portal, the PlayStation Portal? What do you talk? You had that. You were such a huge fan. And while I am still a huge fan of the PlayStation Portal, I can tell you that it is doing a good job at doing exactly what I purchased it for, which was to play through some of the library that I have, otherwise ignored on my PlayStation device, which is the PlayStation 5. And it'll continue to do that, but I don't think the necessity of a Portal is really a part of the holy trinity of video games. In fact, I don't think that the Portal or a PlayStation or an Xbox, for that matter, is necessary whatsoever now that Steam Deck and Asus ROG Ally, as well as Lenovo Legion Go, are such common devices that we find in the bags as well as the homes of gamers, especially as fathers. For me, this portable life, this portable papa life, has plenty of advantages, and we've talked at length about it. I don't have to get into it, but the conversation we had was such an exciting one. We started out by just overhearing them talk about Overwatch, which led me into a conversation about plenty of other things. We talked about anime, manga, and just some of our favorite things, but the cool part was both of these guys were multi-kid parents. Fathers of multiple children, one with a new one on the way. Actually, both of them, new ones on the way. And it was a really, really fun, relatable conversation because I've talked to you guys about video games quite a bit. In fact, this whole channel is dedicated to video games, especially now that we have switched to these conversations. Oh, be careful. Don't pop your AeroPresses. Whoo! Fun fact about popping an AeroPress, if that coffee gets on you, you are bummed. It is like hot molten lava because it sticks to you. Do not get hot molten coffee grinds on you. It'll burn you and keep burning you. It's like napalm. The conversation was cool because we talk all the time about this lack of time, having this in my pocket. Oh, I got some moments I can play some Pokemon Ruby or something like that. Exciting, fun. Well, I had this conversation with these guys, never met them before, first time meeting them, although when you're at church, it's pretty easy to meet people because we're all there for the same reason. But we were talking, they had the same thing. In fact, one of them shared a fun story about how he has a gaming PC, and late at night, he's just trying to get a couple hours, and he's like, maybe I'll just wake up really, really early and have that quiet time to play a couple hours of my favorite game. And I'm like, yo, Pops, like, this is it. This is the way, like, completely relatable. And it was so encouraging to meet dads in person and see that this isn't just a unique story to myself. In fact, this is an unbelievably relatable as well as common story. All of us fighting for minutes, not hours, minutes to enjoy this incredible hobby. And I say the fight is worth it, well worth it. We should fight for those minutes because it grants us access to the, I believe I called it 3 R's, which is rest, rejuvenation, and I don't remember the third one. We're going with Amber today. That's exciting. It was like rest, recharge, rejuvenation. Boom. Rest, recharge, rejuvenation. Got it. And so let's speak into those. Let's speak first into the recharge aspect of things. When playing games, I feel like mentally, a lot of us have a lot of stuff we carry. We carry the responsibility of provision, of adding to our family's finances, of adding to our family's well-being. Whether we share that responsibility of provisions with our spouses, or we are the sole provider, or we are the caretaker of the home, we still have a tremendous amount of weight to carry. And so when it comes to video games, I feel like it grants us that moment to really recharge and to allow ourselves to take a step back. And for me, it's playing some more retro titles, sticking with the R's, retro remake and remasters. I feel like retro remakes and remasters are, for me, where my heart's at. It's clear. Nintendo has always been at the center of my gaming interests because their franchises are pretty long lasting. In fact, some of the original franchises that we've all been introduced to. And while they don't always hit for me, I'm not a huge fan of the newest Princess Peach game, and I can't say that I love the direction of certain Mario games. They're not my favorite. At the end of the day, the franchises themselves are beloved. I'm not running to my device, whether it's a Portal or PlayStation, to just spend moments in the world of Ratchet and Clank. While I love Ratchet and Clank, and I think that franchise is certainly one of my favorites, at the end of my day, I'm sooner to jump into the Mushroom Kingdom or to Hyrule even, or maybe, do some dungeon crawling in some other Nintendo franchise or get into Kirby's Dream Land than I am to want to spend 30 to 45 minutes trying to nail the perfect timing to get through something like Elden Ring. A game that I think is one of the most beautiful games created, a masterpiece in its own right. I just find myself going, I want to pick up a piece of third-party technology and play through a Pokemon game that was released 25 years ago. So I want to do that far sooner or far quicker than I ever would want to pick up the newest version of Pokemon even, or just a brand spanking new game like Stellar Blade, which people love, and I personally, looks fine, it's just, it doesn't call me. And I think that when it comes to this hobby as a whole, one thing that's very important is the aspect of recharging, not just because batteries are silly and you should have rechargeable batteries, but because recharging allows us to come back better. And in that recharging leads us to the next point, which is rejuvenation. When you recharge, you're not allowed to, but you end up experiencing something that is pretty important, and that is gaining back energy, gaining back focus, gaining back patience and stuff like that. And next, with the rejuvenation, you become better. You become more capable. Your stores, so to speak, have more space. You're able to do more because you are recharged and yet now rejuvenated. When you fill up those stores, you now have the capability to do greater things. And while I think that grind culture speaks directly against this, the idea of recharging is so unbelievably important because it grants us access to the result of that, which is, I believe, rejuvenation, getting better, becoming better. I know personally, when I'm given those moments to myself to recharge, I'm able to withstand some of the frustrations that would otherwise set off my patience, or test it rather. With the kids screaming, my son deciding that throwing his food right now is his favorite thing to do rather than eating it. I don't know if you can relate, but feeding your child a squeeze pouch of delicious, yummy, pureed vegetables and fruits, all of a sudden they went from sucking it back in 4 gulps to filling their mouth and then spitting it everywhere. My biggest pet peeve is gross messes. And so having a one-year-old boy rather, is trying. So trying. Now, that has nothing to do with video games, but I will say that specific instance, while it sets me off and makes me feel so angsty, not angry, but angsty, having moments while they're napping to play 20 minutes of Pokemon or to get into Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door grants me so much peace in that moment. It allows me to rest, recharge, and rejuvenate. When it comes to resting, one might think that resting is simply just sitting and doing nothing, when I would argue it is absolutely more than that. I think that there is so much power in active resting. I know that in fitness, if you are super sore and really, really beat up from a tremendous amount of training, which happens, I've been in that spot many times, it is almost better for you to do a low intensity, longer session of active recovery to break up all of the junk that's in your body, whether it's lactic acid sitting on some of the muscles, making them sore, or it's tightness from exercises that overuse certain muscle groups, or whatever it might be. That blood pumping, very low intensity, continuous movement allows for you to recover faster and better, while also increasing your aerobic capacity, which is very good for you, and giving you the ability to come back sooner and stronger. And so active resting rather than passive resting, while there are very specific instances where passive rest is something that is potentially necessary, usually that is reserved for moments in which you have put yourself into an overtraining kind of situation, which is very, very hard to get to. Very hard to get to. Regardless of what you read online or see online, it is hard to be overtrained unless you are a professional athlete. And even then, chances are you're just tired and you'll be okay. I use that example because that's a world that I know very well, because I believe strongly in the idea of active rest, in not just being active physically, but mentally. I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a long, tiresome day, dealing with toddlers, dealing with cooking meals, cleaning the house, making sure everything's all set, going to work, coming home, that one big project that had a deadline that you had to do, all of this stuff. Facilitating conversations with your spouse, ensuring that you're present and you're listening and you're very, very involved in everyone's life in your home. It's exhausting. And I think that better than just staring at the wall or churning on a mindless or pulling out your phone and mindlessly scrolling on one of the terrible social media applications out there, it is far more beneficial to be active with your brain in a restful atmosphere with something like one of your favorite video games, such as Zelda, or hey, if Elden Ring's your thing, go ahead, or a cozy game like Animal Crossing. I know that you hear me speak a lot about Nintendo franchises because, if I'm going to be honest with you, just as I use fitness for my examples because I'm someone who has been so involved in the fitness world for such a long time, Nintendo is my language. While I am a huge, huge fan of the Steam Deck, probably one of my favorite devices, second to the Switch, I still relate. I'm able to stay in this hobby because of Nintendo. I'm a fan man through and through, and I always will be. Especially in moments like these, where the gaming industry seems to be going through a transitional phase, and there seems to be a lot of really weird hubbub around it, from invasive end-user license agreements to silly digital rights management things. All of these different things under the sun, from battle passes to live service to subscription, even DLC, it seems like the gaming industry as a whole is trying to figure out how financially they can support themselves. how they can make these crazy, insane games that actually pay off. And whether you look at it as a greed or a money grab thing, or you look at it as just self-preservation in a sense, it's undeniable that gaming as a whole is going through something. And so I find myself looking back to see how we can move forward, because if we don't learn from what was back there, we'll never be able to do the right thing moving forward. And I think the biggest thing and the biggest opportunity we have for the gaming industry is that we saw a tremendous amount of what worked. And pushing the envelope and being innovative is great. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But I don't see that happening as much. And so as I say that this very hobby is something that I use to rest, recharge, and rejuvenate, I find that the only way that I'm able to properly experience those three very important things with this hobby is by sticking to retro, remakes, and remasters. Now, I know that that's not for everybody, and it could very well be the fact that I'm in my mid-30s and that gaming for me was really done in the 90s and 2000s. And these newer games that the next generation seems to be enjoying are ones that are just outside of my realm of interest. On top of that, I'm not someone who likes a lot of the live service games out there, which these companies make, let's be honest, all their money off of. Activision really capitalizing on something like Call of Duty, Blizzard, and World of Warcraft even. I just want to sit down, get cozy, and enjoy a good story. A good one that is tailored for me and my experiences. And I'll tell you right now that I am sooner to relive an experience that I loved as a child than to fight and claw to try to figure out what has been released in the past couple of years that I will enjoy. The format of games has changed tremendously, and if I'm looking to rest, recharge, and rejuvenate, I want to make sure that my very, very limited time is used properly. Not to mention, I'm limited in the power that I have to do this, right? I have a Steam Deck, not the most powerful device. One of my favorite, if not arguably my favorite device, is the Nintendo Switch OLED. And until the Super Switch releases, it's certainly a healed device, and it's very, very old as far as technology is concerned. And lastly, my retro titles that I am gravitating towards are done on these, which are basically just tiny itty-bitty Android devices. No better than a cell phone as far as processing, but a million times better than a cell phone because it doesn't track every single thing you do at all times. Make phones phones again, am I right? I would say that my favorite way, and this will be the video that we talk about next, to interact with my technology is being dumb. I want my technology to be dumb. I want my games to be dumb. I want my experience to be dumb. And what I mean by that is I just want to interact with it on my own. I don't want EULAs, email addresses, all these updates all the time. I just want to experience a game that was created from start to finish. And it looks like in order for me to rest, recharge, and rejuvenate by experiencing the games I want as a dummy, the way that I'm gonna have to do it is through retro, remakes, and remasters. Today's all about the R's, ladies and gentlemen, despite the fact that my whole family are all J's. I like using those kind of things. Maybe it's the sermon writer in me. Maybe it's not. I don't know. That being said, come and join us on Twitch for our live streams. And by our, I mean mine, and no one else is streaming with me. I have gone back and forth plenty of times. And the reason why I'm using Twitch is because while I don't belong there, I certainly don't feel like I belong there, maybe we can make a difference over there. And yeah, it's very, very easy to go live there. So that's what I'm doing. Links are all below. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good cup of coffee. Tell someone you love that you love them. But most of all, happy gaming.